podcast is intended for listeners over the age of 19 in Ontario, and we ask that you respect your local militia-style laws regarding cannabis.
Be sure to like, download, follow, subscribe, and share with all of your lovely friends. Hi, ladies.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Annie.
Hello, Kris.
Yes, we have.
Hello.
We've got Kris joining us today from the greater Ancaster area here in Ontario, where he is the master grower for the Green Organic Dutchman. So I'm very familiar with the Green Organic Dutchman, and I had the pleasure of visiting the facility about a month ago in May, and I came home, saw Annie, and said, oh my goodness, we need to have these guys on.
Yes, you were super impressed.
I was so impressed and just like beaming, but Annie said, absolutely not. The season is already booked up. So we had a little, shuffle of things happen, and
Here we are.
Here we are, and I'm so thrilled to have you here, Kris.
Great.
Yeah, so we wanted to, the facility itself is unique because it was built with the intention of growing cannabis.
Yes.
Which is kind of fascinating because a lot, Annie, we did that episode Lighting Up Leamington back in season 2 and talked about all of the light pollution.
Well, all of the smell pollution, the light pollution, and in Leamington, for the most part, they're carrying on traditional growing techniques of tomatoes and then just changing those greenhouses over to cannabis, and then you end up with terrible environmental impacts. Leamington especially is on a bird path, one of the biggest migratory paths in Canada. Yep. So there are issues. So we have highlighted the issues, but TGOD, the Green Organic Dutchman, shows that we can do things better.
And sort of take the corporate cannabis model where we're growing in these big facilities, take a craft style method to it, and then be a good neighbor and take care of everybody, right? So, Kris, I was hoping you might be able to tell us a little bit about the facility itself and some of the innovations that went into, being a good neighbor.
So I think just to highlight the facility, it's over 120,000 square feet in total space. That includes the greenhouse where we're doing the flowering, the pharma building where we do all our mother, veg, and clone, and then our support building, which has our trimming, our drying, our curing, as well as our energy center, where we actually generate all of our own electricity. We are completely off the grid.
Wow.
So I think I'll touch on the good neighbor part right away. I think, there was a lot of challenges at first for TGOD, just neighbors questioning what they were going to do, the size of the facility, the smell, all the activity that would go with cannabis. So obviously they really wanted to make a really big effort to mitigate that. So I think the light one you touched on, it's huge. We have over 3,900 LEDs on in our rooms, especially at the end of the day, because we are a sun-forward facility, but we use the LEDs to supplement the light that the sun wouldn't give us, especially in the dark months of the year.
Yeah.
So, once it's dark by 6:30 in December, we would be sending a giant beam of light to the moon, and it would interrupt the neighbors and everybody. So our building, which is, completely automated, we have a system Priva that literally measures the sunset every day, and our system will shut the blinds 30 minutes before sunset every day automatically.
That's amazing.
On top of that, we obviously make sure that it happens. So, we're blocking out all of the light on the side of the rooms, on the top of the rooms, and everything. So if you drive by our facility, you really at night, you can't see it.
No, you cannot. I was actually at a wedding about a year ago at the golf course beside your facility. And then when I learned that that's where the facility was, I was blown away because I couldn't see it, I couldn't smell it, and I was I was out there all night.
Yeah, and so we also have quite a lot of money invested into carbon filters, and so the facility is a purpose-built building, really to grow cannabis, and so that really gave us the ability to really look at how the airflow works. So basically, in the large flower rooms and all the grow rooms, and even the drying room, when any air is going to be going to the outside, it passes through carbon filters first.
Wow, that is so respectful.
And we spend a lot of time changing them. It's just the right thing to do. I mean, you don't want your neighbors complaining. Security isn't really the part of it, but it's hard to live next to a facility that, smells like that, especially if you don't like the smell. I mean,
Even if you do like the smell, I have to say, like, there's a intersection in Leamington that smells like it has been permanently hotboxed, and I love the smell, but nobody wants to live in it 24/7.
Right?
It's too much.
And where a lot of these grows are, tend to be like places people go to retire.
Yeah, well,
And
people live there.
Right? And then these new neighbors move in.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, and it gives cannabis a bad name. So if you can
That's
grow
right.
in a facility that is supporting a community with jobs and not creating these, things that people outside the facility find as detrimental and are detrimental, and light pollution is a terrible thing. So
It messes up the birds, the butterflies.
so you
all the
took
animals.
all of this into account before even building.
well, and I think a lot of people, I mean, not just the cannabis industry, but greenhouse industry has expanded so much in Ontario in the last 10 years that I think they got ahead of the regulations, right? And so, obviously there's friendly neighborhoods that want the greenhouses there, but at the same time, I mean, it's unbelievable when you drive through Leamington now. Even for me, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
So the other purpose part of this that we have in our facility is that the entire facility is off grid, and we utilize it's a cogeneration is what we call it, and it's combined heat and power is another way they use it. So we have 3 generators that are giant 16 valve engines that are ran by natural gas,
Okay.
and they create a very low cost per hour for our kilowatts. The other factor is that we utilize all of the heat that it produces to heat our greenhouse. And all of that really helps us, because we're using that heat, it also helps us basically improve what we exhaust. Okay,
Wow.
so that's a really important thing as well. So when the cogens, we'll call them that, they're turned on, they run all of the lights, all of the HVAC, all of the pumps and everything. And we have an amazing track record against Ontario Hydro for
Wow.
our system always being on. We obviously always have redundancies, but the redundancy is basically a diesel generator that if the machines do go down, they turn on just to make sure that I've got enough heating and cooling and I got enough light for our veg and our mothers and all that stuff. But it really, we are off the grid, which for us is a great thing. The other big part about our sustainable story, I think, is the water. So, we're going to use today probably 50,000 liters in the greenhouse
That's
alone.
amazing.
We're going to put that much water out. All of that water was collected on the roof from rain. So that water, we have a well with a small water right, and we use that well to top up our potable water system, which is our one RO system, and that's to wash equipment, wash hands, all the stuff that people would do. But every drop of water that goes to the plants is collected from the rainwater on the roof, and it's stored in our collection pond, which is a totally controlled pond that's over 4 million liters.
Whoa. That's a
and-
lot of Olympic swimming pools.
It's huge. It's a huge pond, but we basically have to plan for a dry summer, a drought. And we probably have enough water right now to go till December.
Oh yeah, we've had enough rain. Can I ask you about that actually? December. What do you do in the middle of winter when the pond is a skating rink?
It's not. So we actually have a cover on it that kind of stops the ice from forming.
Okay.
And then the water below will not freeze. The pond's over 20 feet deep, actually.
Oh, wow.
It's
Oh,
quite
okay, so it
large.
would be the first, even if it did freeze, it would be the first
Yeah.
like
No.
6 feet.
Yeah, it's usually about 10 to 12 degrees coming in into the building. So what actually happens is, I'll go quick on this. The water gets pulled from the pond and it goes into our irrigation system in the building. And we have a large irrigation room that you would see in a large greenhouse. All of our tanks are stored in the ground. So what ends up happening is the water comes from the pond, gets completely filtered, and gets stored in those ponds, and then gets moved in through our irrigation system.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And just to touch on this, because we're talking sustainability, when you feed a plant, let's say you put 100 liters into a plant in a day, you're not going to, that's a lot. But the plant's going to give back 97% of that in transpiration back into the air.
Yes.
So plants really don't hold on to a lot of that water. So that's what makes grow rooms the humidity in grow rooms and all that. That's the problem we're facing. Our HVAC system will collect all that water after it dehumidifies it, and it will put it back into the pond. So the actual...
I knew you were going to react like that, Andy. I knew it.
My jaw just dropped. I'm loving all of this. I mean, none of it is None of it is required, but it
No.
makes great business sense. It's the way of the future. Being
Absolutely.
off the grid and not having to rely on the grid can be,
Mm-hmm.
actually a real godsend when the grid isn't always reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And you're creating a healthier product.
Absolutely. Now, the last part on that is that all the water that comes from the troughs in the bottom of the pot, the runoff, that goes back to our irrigation room, and we actually filter that again, and then we simply mix that into the water that's going to the greenhouse. And our automation system will literally look at the EC level, which gives us a lot of ideas of the level of nutrients that are still in that water, and it will balance it for us. So we don't actually waste even the nutrients that we're using.
That's neat.
So we want to make sure that we use every little bit. And so sometimes I got to tell people, well, we don't really use water. We use rainwater, but in the end, we don't take water from anywhere else, right, but the rain. So,
Which is incredible,
Yes.
right? Like it's already there. Just
Yes.
use it,
Yes.
right? It's a good source of fresh water.
and it's really clean water, and it's usually got the right pH and everything that we want, right?
Well, that's the
Yeah.
other
So-
thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You're
So
not-
you have to do a lot of work to make your water right at a lot of facilities, and a lot of that waste, that water that they clean, the dirty part goes down the drain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and right back into the city water main, and then the city has to
Absolutely.
clean it.
Well, and then it's got
Right.
chemicals put into it.
Right.
All of
That's
that.
right.
I mean, here in Barrie, we have terrible, terrible tap water. It's disgusting.
Yes.
I actually bring bottles of river water home from the cabin during the summer.
Oh, yeah?
Because we go back and forth with big water bottles. I fill them at the river and then use them for my plants here. So
Oh,
I don't
that's
have
so
to
funny.
use the Barrie water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Try not to use city water on your plants. I hope everybody hears
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Tell me about
Anywhere in Ontario.
Yeah,
You know.
that's why I'm bringing water from a river
Yeah.
because no.
it. Yeah, I've been buying it up at the RO water from the guy down the street there. Now, speaking of being a good neighbor and all of these innovations, you guys also have a really cool packaging because you guys use glass jars,
That's right.
which
Yeah.
is incredible. I mean, I reuse my jars all the time. I have drawers full of the TGOD jars, and I relabel them. And like when you gifted me that lemon haze last year, I just put it into that jar, and I took a piece of whiteboard marker and it was like lemon haze.
And it's glass, so it's so much better.
So much better for the environment, so much easier to recycle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and the challenge we had was to get it opaque enough for Health Canada, but they found something that worked, and yeah, it's great. I mean, I have my whole collection of cannabis right now in used jars.
Yeah,
So it's
right?
great, yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Such a good neighbor. Now, you guys also, something else that really resonated with me is that you guys have a vegetable garden on site. And I
Yeah,
thought
so-
that was incredible.
so we not just engaging a neighbor, but our sort of community liaison person is Mary Lynn, who is actually a physical next door neighbor.
Oh.
And so she became a huge part of it, big supporter of it. She is her husband's a fourth generation farmer on that farm.
Oh, wow.
And they really embraced us, and she's a huge part of it. So she actually runs the organic community farm. And last summer we delivered 8,000 pounds of food to the food bank. And the real challenge of food banks is to get fresh food. And so we did a really good job. Carrots, squash, tomatoes, potatoes, zucchinis, all those things went to them.
Wow.
And the other part of it is that we feed our farm with compost from our destruction and our greenhouse.
So you
Go ahead,
basically
Kris.
take the soil that it was grown in after we've sort of exhausted what's in that soil.
No, we don't actually. So really quick, so we don't change the soil in our grow rooms. So, and that's something a lot of people are shocked when they hear. So I have 12,000 square feet of troughs in a grow room, and we don't change the soil. We steward the soil like a farm, and we care for it very, very carefully.
So it's like a farm field, just a little bit
That's right.
elevated.
That's right.
Ah.
So when we harvest after we harvest a room and we need to go, doing the cleanup, we literally go in, and this is where we are like a farm. People literally go in with sickles, and we hand cut out the root balls from the previous plant.
Yeah.
And those root balls and all of the destruction and even the controlled destruction will all get put into a bin and then taken to the compost pile on the field. And that compost pile gets turned and works over a year, 2 years, and then they spread it in the field.
Wow.
So
And that's what's growing the vegetables.
that is a big part of what's growing the vegetables. And I mean, it's amazing. And it's filling up my front yard garden here, because I'll bring that compost home for me. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you do come, bring a little pail for your trunk and take some home.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
And I mean, I want to talk on the soil part of that, because, we are living soil, and living soil really means that we steward the soil and we take care of all of the microbiology that's in the soil naturally, just like you would see in a proper farm field or in a forest. So the compost and the decomposing plant material is what all these microorganisms feed on, and they take all of that and turn it into that usable form of nutrients that we see trees growing beautifully with. So what we really work at is the helping those microbiology in our soil to always be alive. So if we threw it out, we'd be throwing out all that microbiology. So we simply, after the room's prepped and ready, we simply bring the veg plants down from the pharma building, and we transplant them back into the soil.
That's beautiful.
And I think the thing I want to touch on is that if we were doing our 12,000 square foot room with our 4,000 plants, if we were a conventional grower, like in Leamington, we would have a Rockwell cube for the clone, a Rockwell cube for the veg, and then probably a Rockwell slab to finish the flower off. So that would mean in 9 weeks, out of every one of our grow rooms, which we have 8 flower rooms, I would throw out over 12,000 pieces of garbage.
Wow.
And none of those are ever reusable or compostable.
Right.
So we'd be throwing out 12,000 pieces of garbage, probably a good-sized dumpster.
Yeah.
And then again, it would go to the landfill, and it would still be full of all the ammonia and nitrates that the conventional growers would use, let's say.
I was going to say that the chemicals that you are not using as well, I mean, those all end up in our environment, and there's such,
and
it's never
they go down
contained.
they're terrible. They go down the drain, and they go to the landfill.
And they go into your plant.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the first place I don't want it for myself, but, we don't snap, crackle, pop. Let's just say that, right?
Nice.
And so, I mean, I think it's a sustainability story, but it's also really that living soil is what's giving us our consistent THC levels, our consistent other cannabinoid levels, and our high terpene levels, but also the diversity of terpenes that we see. The plant is just in a beautiful state on its own, and it produces its best self, is my opinion, is what really ends up happening. Nitrogen and a lot of fake nutrients are like candy. They'll make us look big and fat, but we're not strong and healthy, right?
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction to see. And we keep our soil forever. I've been there since January 2021, and I've never changed the troughs.
That's
We
amazing.
just simply add to it. Yeah.
Something you touched upon there, which Amanda was actually showing me just before we recorded, I have a jar of sugar bush, and she was showing me how I can put in my lot number and actually get all that information.
Yeah, all the COAs are available, right?
For
Right there.
that batch, which is, I mean,
That's
total
right.
transparency, and especially for people who really want to know what's in their cannabis, what terpenes and what work for them. I'm thinking Nikki Lawley here, who's very specific about what works for her and her TBI, that having that there, and it's not just like, oh, here's a COA we did 5 years ago, and this is basically kind of what we're growing-ish. This is what we grew 5 years ago. You're doing it right down to the lot. And that shows complete transparency.
It's great transparency. It's also great promotion because we're doing great, right?
That's right.
And what is farnesene? One of a rare terpene. It gives you more of that apple smell.
Yep.
It shows up consistently in sugar bush quite high.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Now, something that I found really interesting about sugar bush, and then you guys have another cultivar, and it's maple kush. And they're pretty unique because they've been grown, instead of adding molasses for carbon loading, they're using, I guess it's you're using maple syrup, organic maple syrup.
That's right.
Which is kind of crazy. I've never heard of anybody
How
using
Canadian.
maple, right? How Canadian, exactly. Can't get any more Canadian.
It's also a great byproduct of the maple syrup industry is what we're using. And so most of that would go to waste.
Okay.
So it's just another thing where we are using byproduct of other industry to create our recipes. And it is Canadian, and we get it for a good price, so it's a great option for us.
And you're, again, diverting something from landfill that wouldn't be used.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So not
And
only
on that-
are they making no waste, they're taking other people's waste
And using
and
it.
using it, right?
That's right.
Like you
That's
couldn't,
right.
couldn't ask for a better neighbor.
Now, I knew that you guys were organically conscious and environmentally
Mm-hmm.
conscious. I just didn't realize that it went through every level. Like, this is almost zero waste concept that you have here.
And it's a great story, but for me, it's great farming because I create a great budget for farming. We get to spend our time and money on important things. I would say like that, right?
Like having fun.
That's right. We have a lot of fun, and
It's
that's
true.
for sure.
Actually, in that facility, everybody is smiling all of the time. People are like dancing through the halls and like singing as they're trimming. Like it was such a vibe. Like I was 1,000% vibing with every person in that space. Like
And those plants feel those vibes, man.
right.
Oh, don't they though, right? And the culture that we're building there is what's really fun. And I would say the majority of our staff are cannabis lovers and love our products, love what they're doing every day. And I do think the terpenes in the air do give us a bit of a nice feeling.
Now, something that I had heard sort of through the grapevine, which I think is just an incredible neighbor thing, but just a responsible employer. I've heard that everybody in the facilities earns a living wage,
Absolutely.
which is just such a responsible business model.
Yes.
Right? Like I want you to work for me. I want you to be happy.
I want you to come back tomorrow and the next day and the next day and be loyal.
Right?
And yeah.
And I want you to, when you leave here, to be able to do things that you want to do.
And spend money in our community.
Exactly. And
If
it
more
just,
employers could think like that.
right? We just need
And-
to clone.
We have great employee retention, and we have a very diverse crowd. I mean, age. I think everything and everybody is represented in our facility.
Yeah.
A lot of new Canadians, a lot of internal promotions go on. I mean, it's something that we find that people come there, they're willing to take, a cultivation tech role and work hard for 6 to 8 months. And then eventually, they'll finally tell us, well, actually, I have a degree in this or I have a diploma in that, and we're promoting people internally, and it's really adding to our success. That's something I really feel is important. for
Yeah,
people
and
to
the
know.
culture. The culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it keeps sort of the cannabis culture, right? Where like, pre-legalization, right? Like it is a community
Yes.
of cannabis.
And that is sort of lost in these bigger corporate grows where it becomes a corporate thing and the culture of cannabis is lost. And when you lose that, you lose sight of what the product is that you're supposed to be creating.
Yeah.
And it never works out well. So
That's
if you're
right. Too many places right now are looking at the bottom line and not looking, the bottom line instead of the people, right? And the people are your true assets.
Yeah.
And you know how you improve the bottom line? You increase the yields and you increase the THC, the things that the customer are looking for.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we've been really good at doing right now, which I think is really important for us as well. And you know what? A lot of that culture, I'm not trying to, give up to the bosses, but a lot of the top guys in the building, the general manager, the COO, the CEO, when I came in, it was really clear that, they wanted some improvement. They really needed some improvement. And the general manager specifically was very much let Kris decide when to harvest. And we don't harvest on an Excel spreadsheet. We harvest when me and Casey, and who's an alternate master grower, and Ryan and Jason, who are really our harvest and drying team, we work together to really make a decision based on the trichomes.
Yes.
Based on the state of the flower, but fully on the trichomes and the state of the flower to make that decision. And we're doing really well. And it's, this is the high pressure part of my job. I'm always waiting on pins and needles to know what does that C of A actually say, right?
Yeah.
And we are not going to sell anything below 22, 21%. And we've been pretty consistent at between 23 and about 26. We're putting out from 28 and 29. But I will give kudos to that culture, really to the guys at the top to say, look, we want to put out the best product for the customers. And the only way to do that is to listen to the plant. And that's the call. When I'm questioning myself, those guys they will look at me and say, Kris, let the plants do the talking. and that's what we do. We really let the plant take its time to get ready and to be right for the customer. So.
Wow. I feel like more people within the industry need to come and see what TGOD is doing.
I have a feeling that they're going to get a bum rush on resumes.
Yeah, you know. It's the place to be. It's the place to be. It's the place to work. If you are passionate and you're focused, you know,
Yeah.
TGOD is. Yeah, it's the place.
Now, I don't know if it's actually been directly said in this episode, but the Green Organic Dutchman
Oh, yeah, I guess we haven't really touched on the fact that.
is organic. And
Certified ProCert Organic.
That's right.
yes,
So, and
it's not just
li-
a word,
No.
it is a philosophy.
And the Pro Cert certification, and Kris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is what all of like our groceries have to have to be considered organic.
So how a certification works in Canada is there's the Canadian Organic Standards that are actually set up by the government. And the CFIA are actually the ones that run that program. And what they do is they license third-body certifiers to certify people under the Canadian Organic Regulations or Canadian Organic Standards. So there is really two larger players in that world, and that's ProCert and EcoCert. EcoCert is a French company. ProCert, I want to say, is an Ontario company, but is also in the States now as well. And so they audit and certify everything that we do. So I cannot use a product in my facility unless ProCert approves that I use that product. And that goes beyond even Health Canada.
Yeah.
So these are Health Canada standards, like on speed.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it's every little aspect of everything we do is looked at, including the cleaning products that we use.
Yeah.
Those have to meet organic standards as well.
Oh, that's cool.
And you know, this is where it's really important now to say that we're certified organic, because that takes a much bigger effort than to say the word organic.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, is people toss the word, oh, it's organic, it's organic. And, you know, when I first was introduced to TGOD, I was like, oh, yeah, it's Green Organic. I didn't even think about it. And then when I started to learn about your practices, I was like, oh, they're actually organic. It's not just a word.
No.
That's
one of the few truly organic brands in Canada. Like, there's not many that are, you know.
Yes, I'm always sort of leery, right?
And a lot of them are actually certified by different smaller certifiers, which I'm not saying anything about. It's just, I think the oversight of ProCert is a little bit heavier because they are one of the larger certifiers in North America right now.
Yeah.
So, and they are obviously on the, you know, getting bigger and bigger every day. So, and we actually just successfully certified our rooms in Valleyfield, which is the greenhouse in Valleyfield, which we don't own anymore, but we lease space. And we just successfully completed that certification. So the crops that are coming out of there are as well going to be ProCert certified.
What? So, congratulations.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it is doable. Like, we do not have to consume stuff that's full of chemicals. We do not have to support that type of farming. We don't have to do it the way they are in Leamington out of, I think, just tradition and lack of forethought. It's doable, and you guys are doing it. If this is legal cannabis, you can find TGOD at basically every
almost every dispensary these days is carrying at least something TGOD, and they'll certainly want to bring it in if you're asking for it.
Yes.
Right? I think my other favorite thing about TGOD, just as my final point on this, is they are a truly organic brand, and they don't cost the same as like some of these other organic brands out there. Like, I think most retailers, I see TGOD products coming in around like that $30 to $37 range, right?
Yes. And the buds are worth it because they're beautiful.
They're gorgeous, right?
Yes.
Like it's a really well grown thing, but they don't charge you like it's, you know? So like you're doing everything way better than everybody else, not charging the, you know, obscene pricing of some other brands out there. And just being a bloody good neighbor.
Yeah.
Like, what isn't there to love about this company?
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? I mean, so much of TGOD since it started has been about the organic, and I've only ever grown organic. I mean, you know, I've been growing cannabis since I was 20 years old, and the gentleman that taught me was already an organic person, and so that is literally how I was taught. But we grow good cannabis.
Well, yeah.
And organic's important, but it's like, for me, you know, I really want people to, the organic's really important, and I hope that's an important thing, but we also, the cannabis that we grow stands out, and I think stands up to a lot of the other competitors right now. And I think that because we're organic and because we have such diverse terpenes and cannabinoids, I believe our 25 hits a little bit above the belt than other people's 25.
And we
That's
absolutely agree. And we challenge everybody who's listening in Ontario, at least.
Oh, I think I think coast to coast, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Go to your local dispensary, ask about TGOD, the Green Organic Dutchman, see what they have, try it out for yourselves. We just can't say enough good things. And it actually, think about it the next time you're buying cannabis. You can ask your bud tender, do you know how this is farmed? Do you know what's in this? Like, you can be a conscious consumer and actually ask these questions and, put better stuff into your body. And again, like you said, you're not sacrificing quality for, to be able to say you're organic.
Right.
You're doing both to the highest level, which we totally respect.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll get invited to the facility, Amanda. And
I'm sure we can make that happen. I actually don't know why more cannabis companies aren't trying to really go down that road. Like I know, Amanda's seen the facility, and it's quarter to quarter, 12,000 feet of canopy. And we don't have botrytis, we don't have powdery mildew, we don't have a lot of those other problems that people would assume you would have in a cannabis grow, which again really goes back to the purpose-built building part of it. But yeah, I would assume that people would want to just try it anyways. But on the building, the purpose-built part of that, I just want to highlight the fact that you can't be certified organic unless your cannabis is touched by sunlight.
Oh.
So
hey, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, and that is in the Canadian, the Canadian Organic Standards as well. Your soil medium, 10% of it has to actually be soil, which basically means it has to have mineral content and be that. So if you're growing in pro mix and you're adding chemicals to it, it's not organic.
It's not organic. No. Interesting.
No. Right? So sunlight's a really important part of that. It also is just great for us because we can turn our lights off.
Yeah. The sun is free, the rain is free.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's how they keep their costs down, you know?
I know. I think it's brilliant. I just think it's great, and I think you've probably given our listeners
so much more to think about.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I really think this conversation is going to just make people a little bit more aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and it can be done better.
Yeah, and we should support those who are doing it the right way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right
but
on.
I do think it is time for us now to step away,
Take a toke,
and go be moms. If you've enjoyed today's episode, which I know you have, run out to your local dispensary, grab some TGOD, and then come back to wherever you are, listen to all of our episodes, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and tell all of your friends. They will thank you for it.
That's right. And if you do manage to get out to the dispensary and grab up some TGOD, we would love to know what you think of the product and your experience. Tell us.
Yeah, what did you get and how was it?
Right?
But now it's time. We got to say it.
Bye, ladies.